Yo, welcome to Alpha Omega University. Welcome back. I see a lot of people that have been following the channel for some time. I appreciate you guys for showing up consistently, learning, getting better, right? That's the goal. That's the goal ultimately, right? Before we get started, I had some issues with the drops enabled thing. And the thing just keeps popping on and off. Can you guys confirm in the chat real quick if the drops are enabled? If not, then I'm gonna try to talk to SBI, see what's going on. But I know I'm not the only one that's been having issues with that. I know there are other streamers that have had issues with that as well. So if there is an issue, it's probably going to get fixed soon. But I just want to know if it's affecting me because it keeps popping in and out for me on my side. I don't know for you guys. Anyway, today we got episode 20, supports. All right. It's the last episode of the series that we talk about individual roles, individual parts of the Zerg, right? In the grander scheme of things, right? Since we started the stream about 2.5 months ago, almost coming up on 3 months here, we've been kind of breaking it down little by little, right? And we started real broad, and I told you guys this from the very beginning. We started broad. Right, we were talking about these grand aspects, these grand things like metas over time, and like melee zergs and versus range compositions and things like that, right? So we were talking very broad, right? And then we got forward, and into, I should say, deeper, right? We got deeper and deeper, and we started exploring individual roles, and so that's what this series is the individual role series, right? So, here's the thing. After this episode, things are gonna start getting very complex. Okay, everything before today was pretty much very broad and very non-specific advice, non-specific issues, and just kind of how to understand the game as a whole, and in general how to understand ZvZ. Okay. Now we're gonna start after this episode, right? Starting on Friday, we're gonna actually, yeah, starting on Friday, we're gonna start getting deeper and deeper, okay? And that's with the new schedule. I'm gonna pop it back up again because I know some of you guys haven't actually taken a look at it, so I'll just pop it right back up real quick. This is the new schedule, right? And I'm telling you, starting episode 21, we're gonna start talking about much more complex topics, okay? We're gonna go in depth into very important details, and some of these details might seem as though it's kind of like what's the phrase they use around here? Splitting hairs, right? It's like you're basically picking at little things that don't matter too much, and you're making them seem like they matter a lot. I promise you, I'm letting you guys know right now, I promise you that every single thing that we will talk about for the rest of the next 2.5 months for this next chapter, right? The next schedule. They're all extremely important. And this is why I'm mentioning it right now, because I want you guys to be ready, because it's going to get very complex very quickly. I will do my absolute best to try to explain things as simply as possible. But especially if you're like a newer person and you're like completely new to ZvZ, like 100%, ask questions. That's the best thing I can say. Ask questions in the chat whenever you don't understand something. Also, get on the Discord, because you can talk to me on the Discord. The Discord's not super active, but that's because we just started, right? And I'll have a note on that in a few minutes. But essentially, if you're on the Discord, it's in the description on YouTube, and it's if you scroll down on Twitch, it's gonna be right there. So there's a Discord link. So if you're on the Discord at any point in time, you can ask me questions. And I do have people, so you're not going to be the only one that's like messaging me, right? You really are not. I have people that are literally messaging me every day, if not every other day, ask me just random questions like, hey, what do you think of Clarent Blade? Or hey, what do you think of, Guardian Armor with like, I don't know, like Grail Seeker or something, right? Like I've had people just tell me this different kinds of things that they're kind of thinking about, and they just ask me real quick just to kind of get answers. Or just to see what I think about it. Okay. So if you're confused about anything at all ever, just drop it in the Discord, or send me a message personally. My Discord is right there. It's Kelron7412, right? So you can talk to me there. That's fine. Put a message on a comment on the YouTube channel, whatever. Just feel free to ask those questions because it's going to get complex. All right. We're going to start talking about real deep topics as we go forward. And it's going to get harder and harder if you're not asking questions. Now, it doesn't mean that if you haven't watched other episodes before, that you're not going to be able to understand those episodes. No. I'm going to switch back now so you guys can keep watching the ZvZs. By the way, these ZvZs are all from this weekend. And some of them are actually from this morning. There's been a lot of really, really good fights on the East server. So I think about like 60 to 70% of all the videos you guys are going to watch today are actually East server. But yeah. Now, with that being said, make sure you guys hit the follow if you like the content. Subscribe if you want to. You don't have to. The content is free. It will continue being free. But I want to make sure that, you know, you guys get the knowledge as much as possible. That's why I'm not going to ever limit it. But it does help me out, obviously, because there are costs associated with bringing the content to you. So I appreciate it. Another note, we were talking about the, you know, how the stream is growing, right? And I was just looking at earlier today. I was like, yo, Starlord, what's up, man? School's in session. That's right. So I was just looking at the analytics, and I was actually looking, and I realized that a lot of people that are actually watching the videos on, not just on Twitch but also on YouTube, a lot of you guys are actually returners, right? So you guys are actually watching. You guys watch once or twice or whatever, and then you come back, and you're the majority of the people that are watching these shows, right? And that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it shows me that you guys are actually enjoying it enough to come back, right? And that's a good thing. Also, you guys are possibly learning from it, and you're getting something out of it, and that's why you're coming back, and that's great. However, in that same aspect, in order to be able to grow the community, we need to be able to expand it, right? So if you guys can do me a favor, you know, let people know about the stream, right? Send them a link to the YouTube or whatever you want to do. You don't have to, again, but it'll help me grow the community. And that way we can be on track to being able to do more with the stream. Okay. The more people we can get involved, the more we can do the stream better. And that way make it even more entertaining, things like that. So I have a lot of plans for the stream in the future, but there are certain kind of limits I have to get to first. All right. So one day at a time. Either way, though, the progress so far, being that we've only been around for about 2.5 months, has been great. It's been great. So we're on a great path. So as long as we continue, it's gonna be good. All right. Before we get started with the episode 20 supports, right? Before we get started on that, today it's a very packed episode, okay? And that's because we had a patch. We had a patch drop, and I told you guys that we will be looking at you know, kind of news and notes, things like that on Mondays, right? And that's because they dropped the patch today, and so we're gonna be looking at these things. We're gonna run through these patch notes real quick. We're gonna skip everything that has nothing to do with ZvZ. All right, so the stream is focused on ZvZ. I'm not gonna be looking at non-ZvZ stuff. All right. However, if you do want to take a look at other things, like there's a lot of things that they made for the mists and things like that. So if you're interested in that stuff, I mean, you can go on the forums, right? It's gonna be in there. If not, you can look at it right there. You can kind of make it out on the top of the address bar. You can copy it onto your thing, and you can look at it yourself. Anyway, so we're gonna go through this real quick because there are some changes that are actually pretty big for ZvZ. There are some changes that are not very big. So we'll kind of just brush by them, and I'll mention why I don't think they're too big, but I think a lot of people are excited about some of the changes. So yeah, let me hop on over here, and then let me see. And again, if you guys have any questions at any point in time about anything, drop it in the chat. I am looking and I will respond. All right, so I went through this earlier. I just don't know exactly where the things are. So all of this stuff here, this top part is mostly like single player type stuff. Caches, coffers, dungeons. Okay, so the Avalonian capes, the Avalonian capes and the Brazilian capes. All right, so these two are new features, right? The Avalonian capes and the Brazilian capes. They're two new features, two new capes. Okay. So Avalonian Cape, what it does is that it's gonna activate when you perform a normal attack. So that right there, right off the bat, it tells you this is probably not gonna be good for ZvZ, okay? Because ZvZ usually you're not gonna be focusing on auto attacks, right? Normal attacks. So just right off the bat, that'll kind of trigger you. But let's read it. So it says collect energy and unleash it for 0.5 seconds, dealing magical damage to enemies in a 6-meter radius. I don't know how much damage that is, but it probably is not too much, okay? Either way, it's not gonna be massive. The only thing that does tell me that this might be useful for ZvZ is the fact that it says 6-meter radius, right? By the way, I think it's kind of small, so I'm gonna see if I can make it bigger. Let me see. Is that big enough? Let me go further. Let's go further. Let's make it big as fuck. All right, I think that should be good. I think that should be good. All right, so yeah, so it's 6-meter radius. All right. 6-meter radius is a good amount. So in perspective, brimstone is 5-meter, right? And I only say brimstone because it's you know, it's like a very common one, right? Like heavy mace is like 5.5 meters, I believe. So things are around 5 to 6 meters when it comes to AoE in general. So 6-meter radius, it does hit that mark. I don't know exactly. I haven't looked in the game how much magical damage it does. I believe it probably scales based on tier, but I still don't think it's gonna be very strong. Okay, I really don't think it's going to be very strong. It reduces the damage of enemies hit by 15% for 4 seconds. There are tons of things in the game that reduce enemy damage in ZvZ, and 15% is just not that much, right? Think about it. Guardian armor reduces by 50%, if I remember, 50. And so, you know, 50% reduction, and people still don't use Guardian armor that much, right, in ZvZ. I think Guardian armor is good, but, you know, for the most part, it's not as good as some other ones. And so when you look at 15% reduction, it's not that big a deal. Okay. So yeah, the Avalonian Cape, not that big a deal. Brazilian Cape though, this one, it's interesting. It's interesting. And I know that this cape is a little bit more made for like single player, like corrupteds or things like that, mists. But so it says activates when you cast your head slot spell. Okay. Applies a shield that absorbs up to 200 damage. So that right there is not a lot. All right, because this is before resistances. Even if it was after resistances, honestly, 200 damage is not a lot. All right, and it lasts 3 seconds. I mean, it's kind of short, but whatever. It doesn't matter. It's 200. It's not a big deal. Okay, but this is the one that caught me, right? So this says removes debuffs and grants immunity. This is the huge part right there. The immunity to debuffs. That right there on its own is fucking massive, right? The only problem I have with the wording of this, and I haven't tested it. I mean, this literally came out today, and I didn't test it in the test server and all that. So I don't know. I have to play around with it and find out. But the problem I have with this is that it says accept crowd control and damage overtime effects. All right. So what that means is that you're going to be immune to debuffs. Mostly in ZvZ, we're going to be looking at things like the realm breaker, like the fucking the HP reduction thing, right? It'll be immune to that. Absolutely, it will be immune to that. It'll be immune to pierces, right? So if you're pierced and you use this cape, right? But it activates with your head slot spell, right? So, but you activate it, and now if you have a head slot spell that is like a cleanse, say like a mercenary, or well, actually you can use any leather helmet, right? Any leather helmet, you run a cleanse. You're going to be able to cleanse yourself even though you're stunned or whatever, right? So even though you're stunned, you're going to be able to cleanse yourself out of the debuffs because of the cleanse. But what you're getting from this cape is that the immunity to further debuffs, right? So that right there is going to be pretty important for ZvZ, because immunity to debuffs is just so powerful in ZvZ. All right, it's so hard to get kills in ZvZ without pierces in general. Okay, so if you have immunity to debuffs, that might actually be very powerful. Again, we'd have to test it out. We'd have to take a look at it. We'd have to, you know, kind of assess how it works. But this is one of those things that I would absolutely want to test out a few times and just see how it works. At the end of the day, it might be completely garbage, but it's at least it's interesting. All right. There's some new mounts. Not a big deal. We can skip through those. Elite camps, headquarters in the roads, other changes. There was something in here. No, not this one. Players can change gender for gold. Available customization. Travel mode. This is some quality of life here. This is actually pretty important. The items too damaged to sell can now be repaired directly via the marketplace. That's big quality of life. I like that. But it has nothing to do with ZvZ. The statues, the guild logos. Swift Claw's going down in HP a little bit because it's been kind of bugged. It's not a big deal though. I know a lot of people use ZvZ Swift Claws for ZvZ, but it's not a big deal. Not much to worry about. Husky went up. That might actually be useful to know if you're a scout, especially if you're scouting. Husky might actually be a decent option for scouting because of this health change. So if you're a scout in ZvZ, might take a look at Husky. Let's go through here. We're gonna get into the good parts in a minute. I promise we're getting into the good parts. There's something in here. I just don't remember where it is. Hostility, no. All right, whatever. Let's move on to, this is mobile controller. Curse Staff. All right, so here's the combat balance changes. All right, combat balance changes. So if you've never looked at patch notes before, the part where it says combat balance changes, everything below that usually is going to be everything that has to do with changes to weapons, armors, anything like that, skills, things like that. So that's the stuff that you really want to pay attention to. Everything else is hit or miss. So Curse Staffs. So they give you an explanation here about what they think, what the reasoning for the changes are. You can read it for yourself later. But let's just look at these real quick. So Vile Curse, it's the single target Q, right? For Curse Staff, the cooldown went up by 0.4 seconds. That doesn't matter. Curse Sickle, this one is actually faster going forward and slower going backwards. Overall, it's going to be the same time, right? So it says right there, projectile time, uptime is going to stay the same. So this is actually decent because for Curse players that are running the Sickle, it's going to be able to go faster forward and then slow backward, which is fine. You don't really care about backwards. You want to get the ticks on people forward, right? So usually, so this is useful, but it's not a big deal. Now I will say this next one though, this the AOE Q, the Curse Star for the Curse Staffs. This one is decent. They're adding 0.5 meter radius to the AOE, which is decent. Actually, it's pretty good. And then they're reducing the cast time, and they're increasing the range by 2 meters. Altogether, in my opinion, this is the #1 Q to use for Cursed from now on. Every weapon, every single weapon, it's Cursed Star now, because Cursed Star also does a slow, right? So before it was kind of like, well, some people kind of like Cursed Sickle, some people like Cursed Star. Now it's just hands down, it's Cursed Star. Like you literally, there's no reason to play Sickle. For the Demonic Staff, they made some changes. I'm going to tell you right now, for ZvZ, it doesn't matter too much. I think it can be useful for like a kind of like a plate demonic that kind of does fear and stuff like that. But it's just not. There's just better options. Okay, there's just better options, and this is not going to help it. This is not going to help it much at all. Moving on to the daggers, this is actually a pretty big change. All right, this is a pretty big change here for daggers. This is Deadly Swipe. Deadly Swipe is the Q that all Demon Fang players are using. Okay, it's the one that slashes and it kind of makes your character jump forward or whatever. All right, the energy cost is going from 7 to 9. You might think that's not a big deal, but when you have a ZvZ that's lasting a pretty long time and you have a dagger player that's constantly using that Q, I promise you they're gonna fucking feel that change. 100% they're gonna feel it. The energy gain on hit went up as well to compensate for that, which means that now if a dagger player is using that Q only for mobility and doesn't care about hitting people with the Q, which is what most of the time is happening, truthfully, then if they don't hit them, then they're not going to get any energy regain, right? But if they do hit people, then it's going to stay the same as it was, all right, which is fine. I don't think this is not super significant, but this is going to affect dagger play a little bit. Not a ton. I mean, it's a Q, but it's going to affect them a little bit. They changed the one-handed fire staff, the pyroblast. Yeah, it was atrocious. The aiming mechanic was just absolutely terrible. The way it is now, it makes sense, but it's still not viable for ZvZ. Infernal staff, it looks nice. It looks like it possibly could be good, because like, oh my god, it's a fear and all that, but it's not. It's not gonna work. I tested it out actually earlier today, and because it kind of at least got me thinking about it, and I tested it out, and it just like instantly I was just like, nope, can't. Like, this is just, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. For small scale and stuff like that, Infernal staff would be decent, but ZvZ, no. Frost staffs, the Frost lance went up, or lower cast time. It doesn't matter. This is not going to be a major thing for ZvZ, unless, and this is the only thing that I will say, unless for some reason at some point we get like a poking meta, right, where it's kind of like ranged DPS that are like poking at a very long distance, okay, which can happen at some point, okay, because it even says it right here, more suited for kiting playstyle, right? So then this would actually be decent for that style, but that style literally has never been done in the game, never fully done in the game. So I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon, and this change is not gonna make it happen. So Forge hammers, this is a big one. Forge hammers went down from 50% slow to 20% slow. All right, that is pretty big, because a lot of people like Forge hammers, and yeah, they say that it's quite oppressive for 5v5 content. But honestly, even for ZvZ, this is massive. Think about it. Icicle is 50% slow, right? But Forge hammers is 50% slow, and it gives you that fucking basically a Gigantify, basically resistances, all that crap, right? So yeah, I mean, Forge hammers was OP, honestly. I'm actually surprised people weren't using it more, but now it's 20%. Now it's honestly, it's just completely not viable for ZvZ anymore. Maces. Now this one's actually very important, and first I'm going to talk about the Sacred Ground change down here. All right, Sacred Ground change. So Sacred Ground is the silence pool of the maces on the queue. All right, the silence pool. So the silence pool is about, I think it's a 6-second cooldown, and it lasted 6 seconds. So you can always put it back down, right, at all times. You're always going to have it up, and you're always going to be able to put it down. Now they changed it to 5 seconds. That means that there's always going to be at least 1 second where your silence pool won't be doing effect. All right, that's actually pretty big of a nerf. It doesn't seem like it, but I promise you it's actually going to be a pretty big nerf on the queue. Now, here's one of the big things right here. This addition right here, this defensive slam for all maces. This is the old queue that everybody used to use before silence pool existed for the maces. It's the one where you hit a target, and then it gives you resistances, and it gives people around you resistances. Well, now not only does it give you and other people resistances, it's 5 people around you, right? And it's an 8-meter radius, so the radius is good. However, it's only 5 people, but that's all right. I mean, the resistances you get are like 50 resistance, so it's not huge, but it's good for a queue. But now it also gives you a crowd control resistance, and I tested this out. The amount of crowd control resistance you're going to be getting is going to reduce CC by about 50 to 55%. Okay, so if a stun lasted on you 3 seconds, now it's only going to last like 1.4 seconds. Okay, and that's for you and 5 people around you, right? So that's huge. That's actually pretty fucking huge. They removed this. This is actually a part of the skill from Night Helmet. They removed it from the Night Helmet and gave it to the queue. I'm gonna say this: everybody who's playing Oath Keepers has to run this now. Absolutely, it's incredibly strong. It's incredibly strong for a queue, right? I mean, you got to remember it's a queue. All right. The only problem I have with it is that it's only 5 people around you. If it was more people, I think it would be OP for a queue. But I mean, 5 people is still decent. All right, it's an 8-meter radius, so you're most likely always going to hit 5 people with that resistance and a CC resistance as well. The armor resistance and the crowd control resistance. So yeah, this is defensive slam for maces is actually very, very strong. I already started using it about 2 weeks ago. I started using it already because I knew this change was going to happen. Okay, so when I play Oath Keepers, I already started using it, but But now that I see how strong this CC resist is actually going to be, it's hands down, it's going to be very, very powerful. Helmets. Helmets, let me see here. Again, there's the explanation there. Cultist Cowl, doesn't matter. Cowl Purity. I have to test this one out. Because Cowl of Purity could actually have a decent ZvZ usage. Okay. Cowl of Purity is the one that shoots a beam. It's a helmet that shoots a beam and it interrupts everybody in a straight line. Okay. The hitbox, right? Hitbox size was very, 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 very small. And this is the only reason that it's not even used at all in ZvZ. Okay. But the hitbox was very small. Now, depends on how big this hitbox is now. If the hitbox is pretty big, it might actually be a helpful counter to things like siege bow squads, right? So if you're running things like a one-handed arcane, and you throw your E at them, you're gonna purge them with your E, and it's gonna cancel their face scale hat, and then you're gonna throw your Cowl of Purity right at them, and that one goes pretty quick. And on top of it being pretty quick, it expands much faster. So it's even faster now than it used to be. So what I'm saying is that if you pair a Cowl of Purity with a one-handed arcane, if this hitbox is actually a decent size, it's gonna be a direct counter to the face scale hat siege bow combos that we're looking at. All right. Not only that, the stand time is significantly reduced. I don't even know why it has stand time. Honestly, it shouldn't. In my opinion, it should just be like insta cast and walk away. But it has stand time anyway. 0.4 seconds is not huge. 0.8 was a pretty bad thing, but now 0.4, it's okay. You can deal with it. So this is something to test out. That's all I'm saying. It's something to test out. It might work, especially when countering siege bow bomb squads with face scale hat, with the one-handed arcane. So Hunter Hood doesn't matter. Oh, smoke bomb. All right, this is the biggest kicker of this entire change. All right, and I'm gonna look back here and I'm gonna show you guys there's a big problem with this. Okay, so it said, so the head slot selection in solo and small scale fights was a bit stale. All right. And then they talk about these other ones. And then they say underused helmets. They're talking about solo and small scale fights. Okay. Underused helmets like Cowl of Purity and Hellion Hood are also buffed. Right. So they're basically saying we buffed the Hellion Hood because of small scale and solo fights. And this is one of the issues that SBI has to deal with between having to balance small scale and large scale ZvZ. This is actually a very, very bad change that they did to the Hellion Hood. And I'll explain why. So what they did is the Hellion Hood used to be 60-second cooldown. Now it's only 40 seconds. All right. I've been using Smoke Bomb for years, literally for years. All right. At 60 seconds. And I've said for years that it's OP. All right. Now you're going to cut it down a third of its cooldown. When I have a pork omelet, which I usually run a pork omelet, and I have a pork omelet and I have, you know, my regular kit or whatever, I end up having 33-second cooldown with this Hellion Hood. 33-second cooldown for Hellion Hood is absolutely insane. Okay. You guys, like, listen. People didn't fucking listen to me when I said Enigmatic was going to be good. All right? They didn't listen to me. They didn't listen to me when I said Siege Bow was going to be good. Right? Listen now. Okay? Smoke Bomb is OP as fuck. So, use it as much as you can before they nerf it, because they are going to have to nerf it. There's no way they're going to leave it like this for a while. And if they do, then you know what? You go use that fucking Smoke Bomb and kill everybody else on the field. Okay? I'm going to give you guys a little information that I gave you guys before on a different episode, but I don't know if you guys, picked up on it or not. If you watched that episode or not. But Hellion Hood does not work as intended. Hellion Hood is broken, and it's been broken for a while now. Okay? Hellion Hood says that it silences everybody inside that Smoke Bomb. It doesn't silence everybody in the Smoke Bomb. The only people that get silenced inside the Smoke Bomb are your enemies and the people in your party. Everybody else who's an ally or anybody in your guild that is not in your party does not get Smoke Bomb. Okay? No matter what you do, they don't get Smoke Bomb. It's been broken for a while now. It's been like almost 2 years now, like a year and a half. that it's been broken like that. Okay, I just tested it today, and it still hasn't fixed. All right, because I know the patch today looked at Hellion Hood, so that's why I wanted to check it to make sure. They haven't fixed it. All right. So with that information, plus the fact that they reduced it by 20-second cooldown, this is broken as fuck. It was already OP, to be honest. It was already OP. But this is just absolutely like game breaking at this point. We're gonna, if people pick up on this, and this is the thing, right? It takes a long time for people to pick up on things, right? It took a long time for people to pick up on siege bows, right? So it might take a while for people to pick up on Hellion Hoods. But I'm telling you, when people do pick up on Hellion Hoods, it's going to be, the entire field's going to be smoke bombed. It's going to be absolutely atrocious. And they're going to have to do something about it. All right? So enjoy it while it lasts. That's all I'm saying. I don't like the change because it's going to force SBI to nerf the fuck out of it. And that change wasn't even made for ZvZ. It was made for solo and small scale fights. Right? So it's a tough back and forth. But you know what? Enjoy it while it's around. They made the change anyway, so enjoy it. They removed the Night Helmet displacement immunity. Not the displacement immunity, sorry. They removed the crowd control resistance. So remember the crowd control resistance we were talking about with the heavy mace? Or not the heavy mace, all maces, right? They added the crowd control resistance. So that resistance was actually part of the Night Helmet, and they removed it from there. Okay, so they basically just moved it over. I think that's a significant nerf on Night Helmet. I really, really do. I think Night Helmet is still important and still going to have to be used no matter what you think of it. But that is a significant nerf, unfortunately. And Night Helmet was already struggling to be out on the field. I think a lot of people are going to take this as, oh, Night Helmet sucks. It doesn't suck. It's still necessary. You're still going to have to use it. But yeah, it's a big nerf. Armors, Mercenary Jacket doesn't matter. Mistwalker Jacket, this is actually very important, and I actually don't like that they only did this. Mistwalker Jacket is the one, if you don't know which one it is, Mistwalker Jacket is the one where people go into a fucking like purple looking mist and they're immune to like CC, immune to damage, immune to everything. Shit, they're not even visible, nothing. Like they're just fucking immune to everything, and they make their allies invisible, right? It's broken. The caster is now slowed by 20%, and the energy cost went up by 7%. I'm glad that they're nerfing it. I don't think it's enough. 20% speed reduction is not enough. Okay, this skill is absolutely broken. I think that they should make it a cast. I think they should make it even like a 0.5 second cast, something short. Okay, that way it's interruptible. Because if it's not interruptible, this is just absolutely broken. Okay, even with a 20% slow. If they made it like a 30 or 40% slow, then I can kind of understand it. But 20% is just it's just like barely anything. Now the capes, the Bridgewatch cape, they made basically the tornado kind of go around you and it follows around you. But it also reduces crowd control resistances. I don't see it being used primarily for ZvZ. I just don't. It just doesn't make sense. Morgana cape. I played around with this, and this is gonna be broken for bomb squads. Absolutely broken for bomb squads. I'm telling you guys right now, like this is insane. Okay. I tested it with a brimstone because brimstone has a 2-second cooldown, right? And I tested it with a brimstone using the scholar robe as well still. And yeah, that fucking brimstone comes down so quick, you can't react to it. You literally cannot react to it. And so yeah, I think brimstone bomb squads might come back because of this. Okay, the only problem that the Morgana cape has is that it's a 1.5 minute cooldown, right? So it's not like you can just like use it as a, how do I say this, as a regular engage type thing where like you're in a part of the regular Zerg with a brimstone and you're going to be using it. You can't really use it because it's literally every 3 E drops, you're gonna get it back. So it's too slow. It's too slow. However, for bomb squads, it absolutely it can be fucking damaging for bomb squads for sure. How quick that brimstone drops, man, it's insane. It's insane. It was like 0.6 second cast with all of it put together. Anyway, there was something in here. Oh, we were actually talking about the Daybreaker, and I had never seen this in the NDA patch notes. I don't know if they had it on the test server. I don't know if they had this possible change on the test server. But now that I see this, I like this, right? We were talking about Daybreaker like last stream or 2 streams ago, something like that. And yeah, I was telling you guys how Daybreaker could actually be very powerful if they made it a little better. And this change right here, it's not huge, okay? It's not huge, but it tells me something. It tells me that they're looking at the Daybreaker, and that on its own tells me that possibly SBI is gonna make future changes to make the Daybreaker more viable. That's gonna be awesome, right? So I have high hopes for Daybreaker one day. If they add something else other than a purge, or if they scale up the damage, but making the purge and then hit, that's a big deal. Now, this also tells me that they're able to how do I say this, in the coding aspect of the game, all right, they're able to define when the purge happens and when the damage happens. Okay, so what that tells me is that they might actually change the order in which an enemy gets purged and silenced from the heavy mace or from the one-handed arcane. If they change those, and now we have a purge and then silence, as opposed to right now, it's silence and then purge, okay? So if they make it purge and then silence for the one-handed arcane or the heavy mace, then that's going to be an absolute counter for the siege bow or all phase scale hats in general, all phase scale hats, right? It's going to be a complete counter. But this I like for the Daybreaker. I think I think they're looking at it, and that's a good thing. There was something else. Pierce through siege ballista no longer moves towards enemy targets after channel finishes. Yeah, it used to do that after the channel. I think it was the E. When it would finish the E, the ballista, it would like pop forward for a little bit. I don't know why. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter too much. There was one more thing I wanted to talk to you guys about down here. Yes, no. No, I guess not. Could have been here. No, I don't see anything else. No, I think that's it. So anyway, that is it for those. Let me restart this video here so you guys can watch that. That is it for the all the updates for today. All right. I think overall the most important thing that happened today is the Hellion Hood. It's just OP, man. It's just OP. And I don't think if they had known that it's actually a little broken, right? That it's actually not silencing everybody around them. I don't think they would have made that change. I really don't. I think it's fine as it was. And even as it was already very powerful. The way it is now, it's just too OP. And this comes from a guy that literally loves using Hellion Hood, right? I just think that it's going to be too strong and they're going to have to nerf it. All right. Anyway, ask any questions right now. I'm gonna drink some water real quick. Ask any questions that you guys have about anything, any other changes or anything at all, and then we'll get into the supports episode here. All right, no questions. So, we're gonna talk about today Enigmatic, Great Arcane, Locust, Occult, One-Handed Arcane, Icicle, and Life Curse. All right, those are the weapons we're gonna talk about. We're not gonna be able to spend too much time on any single one of them because we have a lot to kind of go through today. Only one is asking, how do you make sure you don't affect your party with a Hellion? Do you just drop party? You know what? I haven't tested that. I can't tell you that. Okay, I can't tell you that because I haven't tested how it works if I don't have a party. Okay, but what I can tell you is that if you go in a party with at least one other person, the only person you're going to silence is going to be him and yourself. That's it. Okay. So, I'm 99% sure that if you're not in the party, it's not going to affect anyone except yourself. I'm 99% sure, right? Because I've played this shit a long time. I've just never specifically tested that. So I can't tell you for a fact, but if I'm remembering right now, I'm pretty sure it doesn't affect anyone if you're not in the party, except you. Obviously, it's going to affect you. So yeah, I mean, but play around with it. I mean, don't take my word for it. You go and test it out, play around with it, do whatever you want. I mean, It's absolutely broken, man. It's absolutely broken. Yeah. All right, so all of these except for the icicle and the life curse are arcane staffs, right? So supports are primarily arcane staffs. But we do have a couple others, which is the icicle and the life curse. And for the most part, these guys are going to be wearing plate because they're more of like a general support, right? But the only one that's really going to be using anything other than plate is going to be enigmatic. Okay, so I know I usually talk about the weapons and all that first and then the armors, but I'm just going to drop it in right now real quick because I don't want to spend too much time on it. The enigmatic can use it can use cloth or it can use plate. And the reason for it is because when the enigmatic uses cloth, the shield strength goes up significantly. Okay, so essentially you get like almost twice as much shielding from an enigmatic if you're wearing cloth than if you're wearing plate. So that's something important to look at, especially if you're going to be an enigmatic player. However, obviously it's going to make you squishier because you're cloth and not plate. So anyway, for the arcanes, just real quick, the Q, there's 3 Qs, but essentially you're only going to be using the silence Q or the shield Q. All right, the silence Q is very, very, very powerful. All right, it's like a 3-meter radius, something like that. It's like a quick little silence. All right, it's ranged. It's a ranged silence, so it helps you stay at a distance, which is great for support. Supports need to stay at a distance, not fully at a distance, but somewhat at a distance. And it's a silence, and it's great because there's not a lot of silences in the game that are range targeted like that. Okay, so the reason it's important, because I want you to think about this: if the enemy comes in with a beetle, right, and they're using their beetle on your Zerg, if you're like a heavy mace and you have your silence with a Q, right, or even the E, you can't go up and silence the fucking beetle because you're gonna walk into the silence yourself and then you won't be able to do anything. But enigmatic, or not enigmatic, sorry, all arcanes will have the silence Q that is actually ranged, so you're gonna be able to silence the beetle at a distance. So that's why it's extremely important to have a lot of these silence Qs. However, the shield Q used to be the number one thing until they made the silence Q. But the shield Q is still pretty strong. It's a decent amount of shielding, right? I don't know the exact number, but it's a decent amount of shielding. The only problem I have with the shield Q is actually a quote unquote buff that they made. They made a buff to the shield Q that actually allows you to not be pulled, right? So it's a displacement immunity. So like you can't be pulled or pushed or knocked back, right? I should say knocked back, right? You can't be knocked back. If you are knocked back while you're wearing that shield, it negates the effect of that knockback, so you get away with like not getting knocked back. However, it breaks the shield, okay? And the shield itself is actually pretty decent. All right, I like the shield. I think it's pretty strong, and it used to save a lot of people back then. It used to be a great help to the healers because it would buy time for the healers to heal that person up. So a lot of people would be saved by shields, and that kind of quote unquote buff, I kind of see it more like a nerf, honestly. I prefer to just have the shield on its own. I think it's better that way. Anyway, in my opinion, the silence Q is much better, but both are decent options, and I wouldn't tell you that you have to do one over the other at any point in time. It really does depend on your play style. If you want to play a little bit more of a support style where you're playing like support with like shields and stuff like that, you want to run that shield, that's great. If you're playing more of a support where it's like an anti-enemy support, then the silence Q would be better for you. It really does come down to playstyle. The W that you can use with all of these is usually going to be the cleanse, except for like if you're gonna do like a bomb squad or something, then you're gonna run the empowering beam. All right, that's what it's called. It's the W. But the empower beam is the beam that basically makes someone else deal basic like twice as much damage, something like that. But yeah, the W cleanse is massive, right? Nowadays we have so much cleanse on the field simply because there are so many arcanes on the field, and I'm comparing it to about 2 to 3 years from now. Okay, 2 to 3 years back. All right, like 2020, around that time. All right. There wasn't as many arcanes in the Zergs back then. It used to literally be 1 or 2 supports per party at most. Okay, and that I really do mean at most back then. nowadays it's like every party has at minimum 3 supports, and sometimes I've seen 4, if not 5 supports per party sometimes. So there's a ton of supports in the game right now. I think it's a little too much, to be honest. You don't need that many supports in the game. You can reduce it a little bit, but it's the way people decide to play, so that's what we got to go off of. The Cleanse W is massive because it's also ranged, and it also gives a speed boost, okay? That speed boost is actually huge. When you're trying to reposition your Zerg, and you always have those group of people that are too damn slow to rotate, when the caller says, go west, that motherfucker turns around and drops a Q or a W on the east side before he turns around and starts trying to catch up to your Zerg, right? We all hate those slow motherfuckers who think that they can do whatever the hell they want, right? Well, those slow ass motherfuckers can be helped out by simply cleansing them, and you're gonna give them a speed boost, okay? I'm not saying use the cleanse for, you know, helping them getting out of stuns and roots and slows. I'm saying cleanse them so they can speed up. That 30% speed up, I think it's 40. That 40% speed boost is actually huge for repositioning your Zerg and also making sure that everybody's staying together, okay? However, the cleanse itself is very strong as well, right? So you can, what I'm saying is that it's versatile. That's my point, right? And I've said that word many times before on the stream, because it's very important. Being versatile is very, very important. You have to be able to switch the way you can play while being on the field, all right? If you're stuck to one way of playing, then you're inevitably gonna fail, right? You have to be able to adjust and adapt to the situations on the field, all right? And so the cleanse is very strong because it does cleanse, and it gives that 40% speed boost, which is great. So now looking at the individual weapons of the Arcane. So Enigmatic, first of all, Enigmatic is very powerful, okay? I don't think I need to explain anybody like really why, but you know, generally speaking, it's a very, very strong anti-burst support, okay? The enemy's gonna clump and dump you. Well, guess what? If your Zerg is clumped, that means you drop that Enigmatic E on any of them, it's gonna shield all of them, right? And that shield is actually very, very strong because it ticks over and over and over, right? So it ticks and it gives everybody a shield, and then after like a split second or so, I don't remember how it is, like half a second, something like that, it ticks again and it gives them a brand new shield. Okay, so non-stop, the people are getting the shield reapplied, which means that the enemy has to hit extremely quickly. Otherwise, the new shield on the new Enigmatic tick is going to hit, and it's going to shield them again, and it's going to cause your Zerg to not be able to break through all that shielding. Okay, so it's very, very important. This is also why we're going to look into a different weapon right now. This is also why Life Curse is important. Because Life Curse does the exact same thing as Enigmatic, except instead of doing a shield every tick, it does a purge every tick, right? So Life Curse, every single tick, it's going to purge the Enigmatic. So even though the Enigmatic's giving a new shield, it's getting constantly purged by the Life Curse. This is why the Life Curse is so important in ZvZ, because it's a direct counter to the Enigmatic. The only problem I have with Life Curse is that the AoE is too small. I think it needs to be like at least 1, if not 2 meters bigger, and then it'll be where it's supposed to be. But as it is right now, I mean, it's all we got to deal with, so you kind of just got to do it, all right? One of the problems with Enigmatic is that it is interruptible, okay? It does get interrupted by basically anything. If you get interrupted, you're screwed, okay? So Enigmatic usually needs to run things that make it immune to being interrupted. So I know Face Scale Hat would be decent, right? It makes you uninterruptible, right? For your cast. So Face Scale Hat is an option nowadays, but most of the time people used to run things like Graveguard Boots with it for the CC immunity, Robe of Purity, so that if you have Robe of Purity and Graveguard Boots, you have complete immunity to stuns, roots, slows, and knockbacks, right? So those are the things that people tend to use with Enigmatic. And again, I'm going in depth with Enigmatics first because it's very different to the rest of them. The rest of them are gonna kind of fall together in the same kind of box, right? They're gonna do similar things. All right, so that's it for the Enigmatic. Oh, and by the way, that shield, it's a 5 meter radius around the target. So one of the problems that there is with Enigmatic is that if that guy that you're shielding decides to be a coward and runs away, then the shield is gonna run away with him, and he's gonna let all his buddies die in that clump, right? So If you are a person that's getting shielded by that enigmatic, just know you're better off to stay there in the clump to make sure your buddies don't die. All right. Otherwise, you're going to let your Zerg die. The next weapon we're going to talk about is going to be the Great Arcane. Now, a lot of people don't like Great Arcane now. They think, oh, they nerfed it, they changed it, now it's garbage. Now we forgot about it. It's just gone. No one even look at the Great Arcane. It's just dumpster fire. Stop. Okay? The truth is Great Arcane is still very strong. Very, 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 very strong. Okay? In fact, I think it's a little OP. Honestly, I think it's a little OP. And we'll watch a video at the end of this. You know, we're going to look some VODs and stuff like that for all these weapons, right? Well, not all of them, but some of them. And I'm just going to show you guys. Great Arcane is just, it's OP right now. It's absolutely OP. But people don't use it because, oh, well, it got nerfed. It got nerfed. No, it just got changed. It didn't get nerfed. It's still fucking OP. So what it does, what the Great Arcane does, is that it's a 5-meter radius, and it is a longer cooldown. So you usually might want to run like an Assassin Hood or something like that. Which is a lot of the arcanes are gonna have to run those, by the way. And I know that you guys know by now, if you've been watching, you know I don't like the Assassin Hood on anything. I hate the Assassin Hood. I think it's absolutely fucking atrocious. However, for arcanes, it makes sense. It does make sense. So I'm not completely biased against it. It just makes sense in certain options. And for the Great Arcane, it does make sense. It's a 5-meter radius stun. Now, it's not really a stun. It's basically, how to explain this? They call it a time freeze, okay? But it's really a stun that is uninterruptible. So you can't cleanse it, okay? I shouldn't say uninterruptible. I should say uncleansable. It's an uncleansable stun, all right? But it's not only a stun because it's like, oh, well, it's just going to stun you, you know, however long. And then there's CC resistance and all that. No. It's a complete and total stun, which means that no matter what resistance you have, no matter if you're a clothy or a tank or a whatever, you're going to get stunned the same amount as everybody else. Okay. And why is that huge? It's also, by the way, it's also ranged. So why is that huge? Well, because if the enemy's coming in to engage on you and you fucking time freeze a group of 10 of them, right? Then guess what? They are very 100% clearly going to hit at different times. You just screwed up their entire fucking engagement. I don't understand why Great Arcane is not literally in every Zerg, 1 if not 2 per party. Honestly, it's insanely OP right now. Absolutely insanely OP, right? But people don't like it. People are like, oh, well, it got nerfed. It's terrible now. No, it's not, man. It is not. It's still very OP. It just does a different job. It does more of a disengaged tank type job, right? But it's not a tank because it's a support weapon, not a tank. All right, give me a second real quick. I'll be right back. Give me 30 seconds. All right, I'm back. So, let's see, where were we at? All right, so we were at Great Arcane, right? So yeah, so the Great Arcane is absolutely OP. Let's look at the next one. The next one is going to be Locust, all right? Locust has been very strong for a very, very, very long time, all right? They nerfed the shit out of it multiple times, and it's still very strong, okay? There is just no more consistent support type weapon that allows you to push chokes than Locust. All right, Locust is just so incredibly important for choke fighting. Now, outside of chokes, it's not as important. And I know a lot of times people are like, oh, no. What do you mean? You need to cleanse the fucking the clump and all that stuff. Yeah, you do need to cleanse the clump and all that. But because CC resistance has been kind of fucked in recent patches, right? It's not as important to make sure you have a continuous cleanse. So remember we were talking about those ticks, right? It ticks every half second or whatever for the enigmatic and the life curse. Well, Locust does the same thing, except when it ticks a cleanse. Okay, so that's all it is. It's just cleanse over time. Now it also gives resistances. Technically, it gives resistances, and those resistances are actually pretty strong. So that's why the Locust is very strong. But generally speaking, the cleanse is why you're using the Locust. And that continuous cleanse is just so damn powerful. It's just so damn powerful. You cannot go wrong with it, okay? However, I will say that it is most important for territory, castle fights, or just choke fights in general. It's not as important for fights that are open world, okay? It's just not as important. And I'll tell you the truth, Locust is great, but I think people are overusing it. For what it brings to the table, people are overusing it. There are a lot of Zergs that are still running 2 Locusts per party. That is outdated, man. You don't need to. You don't need to. Even 1 Locust per party is still a little too much, to be honest. I would say you can get away with doing 1 Locust every 2 parties, and I think you'll be totally fine, right? So, yeah, Locust is being overused. It's still very powerful. You still need it. Is what I'm saying. But I think it is being a little overused because it has been nerfed multiple times. Its usage is being reduced. Okay. The next one is going to be Occult. Now, the Occult staff is usually for bomb squads. Okay. It gives a 25 meter strip of speed boost, right? Like a 25 meter carpet. Okay. This carpet gives speed boost, and it also slows down the enemy. That slow to the enemy is actually pretty useful, especially if you're a bomb squad and you're running back on that carpet and the enemy's trying to catch up to you. They're gonna probably end up walking onto that carpet, and so even though it's a pretty small slow, it helps them get away. The speed boost is actually pretty strong, and yeah, I mean, it's mostly used for bomb squads, but I know some Zergs like to use Occult staffs for making the Zerg move around faster. I think that's a mistake. That's an improper use of the Occult staff. If you want to have a speed boost for the entire Zerg, then you should be running at least 1, if not 2 beetles, and use the beetle W to speed boost the Zerg. Okay, that is much better than to try to speed boost everybody on a small carpet, and you have your entire Zerg use that carpet. It's gonna make them clump. And if you have your entire fucking Zerg clumping on that carpet, guess what? It's going to be so easy for the enemy to just catch them and kill them, right? You're like, oh, well, they're running quick. Yeah, I mean, you're thinking idealistic, right? If the enemy catches you on one of those carpets, you're fucked, okay? So, Occult shouldn't be used for main Zerg, in my opinion. It really shouldn't. It doesn't belong there. If you want to use speed boost for speeding up the Zerg, use a beetle. All right. The next one is going to be One-Handed Arcane. The One-Handed Arcane is very powerful. I think people should use it more. I don't think we see enough of them right now, especially with the current meta where there's so many bomb squads on the field today. Okay, every Zerg is being carried by bomb squads nowadays. Honestly, like the majority of Zergs are being carried by bomb squads. So yeah, bomb squad is the prime meta right now. And One-Handed Arcane is a direct counter to that, right? Because One-Handed Arcane is basically a heavy mace silence purge, but it's ranged. All right, it's a 6 meter radius when it does impact, so 6 meters is pretty big. It's a purge and silence, right? It silences and then purges, I should say. It's ranged and it's low cooldown, like the heavy mace. It's literally a ranged heavy mace. All right, it's very powerful, and obviously in territory and castle fights, even choke fights, One-Handed Arcane is on the verge of OP. All right. It allows you to do everything that a heavy mace allows you to do with the E, but it makes you do it at a very safe distance, because I think the range is like 20 meters, something like that. So it's pretty decent. The next one is going to be Icicle. All right, now the Icicle, it's not an arcane, so we got to talk about the Q and W, right? So the Q, the new Q that they added not too long ago, it's a 16 meter carpet, right? That it slows 20%. Okay, it's not really a carpet because it doesn't stay, but I mean, whatever. It's 16 meters in front of you and it slows 20%. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but a 20% slow from a Q, that's pretty big. All right, that's pretty big. So the Icicle Q is actually pretty decent to slow people down. The W, you have the stun blink, right? The blink that the frost blink, I think it's called, on the W for frost. That also does a stun on that area around you. It's like 3 meters around you radius, right? So if you're getting attacked, then you're usually like a peel tank, disengage tank type thing. And I'm calling it tank, but it's really support, right? But essentially, if you're kind of like peeling back and kind of staggering the enemy behind you, okay, you're doing your job, then you're gonna have the the W. When they're gonna catch you, you can jump out of them because they're gonna stack on top of you, and you jump out of them, and you're also stunning them there in that place for a second. Okay, so the W is great. The W for the icicle is great. The E itself is actually very, very powerful because the E is 8-meter radius. That's a pretty big fucking area. All right, and it's a 50% reduction in movement, so 50% slow. Now that 50% slow, a lot of people might be like, well, that's not very strong. Blah. Here's the thing, and I've shown you guys videos before. You see videos, and I pointed this out in a few videos back. I said every single time that there was this icicle player fucking throwing down an icicle somewhere, anywhere, everybody was avoiding it like the plague, right? The moment they saw that icicle somewhere, they just walked around it. Even if it meant that they got clumped or whatever, they didn't care. They just didn't want to walk by that 50% slow. 50% slow is pretty oppressive, especially when it's an 8-meter radius. You can cover any choke with that, right? So icicle is very powerful. Also, it's an instant cast, so you just drop that shit, right? So it's great for kiting back. You're kiting back, you drop it behind you, and then you jump away. It's perfect for kiting. Icicle is amazing. This is also why we're not seeing it too often nowadays, because most Zergs don't run kite compositions. They run flood compositions, right? So there's no reason for them to run kite weapons like icicle. But it doesn't mean that icicle is not good. It just means that it's not in the meta. Life curse, we already talked about the E, but let me talk about the Q. The Q we were talking about earlier, the changes that they made to the Cursed Tar, right? The Cursed Tar Q is a decent slow. It's similar to the icicle. However, the icicle is bigger slow, right? But you know, Life Curse Q is fine. The Cursed Tar is fine. But the W, a lot of people don't know what to run with the Life Curse. With the W, they're like, oh, I should run Pierce. Listen, no, do your job. If you're a support, right? You're a support that purges the enemy and all that. Okay, great. Support, use the root. The root W on Curse is actually pretty fucking strong. It's very, very comparable to Snare Charge on maces. And nobody complains about Snare Charge, right? The difference between Life Curse W, root, and Snare Charge for the maces is that the Snare Charge actually makes you move there and puts you in danger, whereas Life Curse, it doesn't. It's ranged, right? But they're very, very comparable roots. They're both very strong. They're both very, very good. The difference between the W root, Life Curse, and the Snare Charge is that the Snare Charge interrupts as well as roots. But I mean, either way though, it's still a nice root. So those are the weapons. Those are the support weapons. All right. I know I kind of just like fucking threw them out one by one. Going pretty quick, but that's because, you know, like I told you, we had to go through a lot of things, the changes this morning and everything. So now we have the armors, the helmets, the boots, and then the tips. And then after that, we're going to look at some of the videos of some of these weapons in action. All right. So I already mentioned the Robe of Purity for the Enigmatic. And they mostly use it because they don't want to get interrupted, right? So Robe of Purity makes sense. It's also because it increases the shield. That's great. But other than that, for the rest of these, you can run things like Demon Armor. And I've told you guys before, I'm not really a big fan of using Demon Armor on many players. Honestly, like in general, I'm not a big fan of Demon Armor. However, when it comes to certain supports like these, it makes sense to run Demon Armor. Like if you're running Great Arcane, it makes sense to run Demon Armor. Why? Because Great Arcane is ranged, okay? So it's ranged and it doesn't require a cast. So you drop your E real quick on the enemy, and then the enemy's still going to come in and engage because you're not going to stop everybody. And when they're coming in and engaging, then you pop your Demon Armor and you give resistances to your allies, right? So you're doing all your job. It makes sense to run Great Arcane Demon Armor, okay? Locust doesn't make as much sense because Locust, if you're going to be a defensive Locust, then you're going to Locust the front, okay? And then the enemy's done engaging and your cast is done. And then what are you going to use your Demon Armor for? It doesn't make sense. But if you're an offensive Locust, meaning that you Locust when your Zerg is engaging, then you can use Demon Armor, because then when the enemy engages you, you're not going to use your Locust E, you can use your Demon Armor, right? So Demon Armor is one of those that you kind of need to be able to make sure that it fits and it has good synergy, right? We've talked about synergy before. So it has to have good synergy with the rest of your kit, okay? And what your job is. Occult with Demon doesn't I mean, again, you don't really want to use Occult in the main Zerg. It's not that important. one-handed arcane with the demon, it can make sense. It can make sense. The problem with it is that one-handed arcane, you need to be in a proper position, because when you shoot your E with the one-handed arcane, you need to do it at an angle to make sure that it doesn't just pop on the guy in front of you when you actually want to hit the people behind him. Okay, so what you need to do with the one-handed arcane is usually you need to position yourself on the flanks, right, on the sides, so that you can throw your E directly at the enemies that you need to hit. So that means that positionally, demon armor doesn't make sense, okay? Because you're usually not going to be in good position to use that demon armor with the one-handed arcane. Even if it does make sense with the timing, it doesn't make sense with positioning, all right? Icicle doesn't really make sense with demon armor either, because if you're kiting back, you kind of want to keep distance between you and the enemy, right? So you're not really trying to fucking catch the enemy engage. You're just trying to kite back. So it doesn't really make sense. Now, Judicator armor is another one that a lot of people use, and this is my favorite. I love using Judicator armor because it's so easy, yet it's so useful, right? It gives resistances and it gives healing, extra healing to allies. I think it's like 30% extra healing. So that's huge for the healers because it makes their job easier. But the resistances are also pretty strong. Now, Judicator, the thing about Judicator and Demon, there's always an argument between them two. Demon armor is channeled, okay? They both give resistances, and Demon armor gives more resistances than Judicator. However, Demon armor lowers your resistances. It makes you literally as strong as a Clothy, okay? Or as weak as a Clothy, I should say. So, Judicator doesn't do that. It just gives everybody resistances, but it gives them less than what Demon armor gives, okay? However, Demon armor is channeled, and a lot of people are like, well, it's channeled, that means it's good because it's uninterruptible, right? Okay, that's fine that it's uninterruptible, but what the hell are you doing during that entire time you're channeling? You're not using your Q, you're not using your W, you're not using your E, you're not using your helmets, you're not using your boots, right? You're not even using your fucking potion, okay? You cannot do any of those things while you're using your demon armor. So a lot of people view the demon armor channel uninterruptible as a good thing. I think it's a bad thing, right? Because of the fact that you have to stay there channeling it, you can't do anything else. Right? Now you can say, oh, well, you can cancel it. Yeah, but if you cancel it, then you don't get the benefit of the demon armor, do you? Right? Whereas Judicator, you drop that motherfucker, and guess what? You're still able to do everything else. Okay? Yes, it's not as high resistances, but you're still able to do everything else. Okay? Plus, demon armor requires you to stand near the damage. Whereas Judicator, you drop it, you walk away, and it's still giving buff to the people there while not escalating damage with you in that clump. Okay, now you can tell me all you want about demon armor, like, oh, well, you can stand on the edge and make sure you don't get hit. Yeah. Listen, that's optimal. Of course, that's optimal, but we're not talking about optimal. We're talking about consistency, right? And consistently, Judicator does a better job than demon armor, right? And a lot of people say, oh, well, demon armor gives a reflect and it kills people, and that's great. Yeah, listen, the amount of people that die to demon armor is not extremely high. The reason that a lot of people don't like dying to demon armor is because they hate it because they don't expect it, right? Because it's very annoying, and it is. But that overinflates the utility of demon armor, okay? I'm not saying demon armor doesn't belong in a Zerg. Of course it does. It needs to be there. It should be there. But it needs to be paired with weapons that actually make sense with it, such as like Great Arcane, offensive Locust, even Life Curse, but because Life Curse you're usually purging when you're engaging, right? Unless you're a defensive Life Curse, then it doesn't work. Okay, so as long as you're mindful of what you are gonna do, your role in that ZvZ, in that fight, as long as you're mindful of that and you're not fucking with it, demon armor is gonna be fine. Another one is Night Armor. Now, Night Armor, usually you want to run this with like a Icicle. Okay, Icicle is great with Night Armor because you're usually trying to push the enemy back, right? You're trying to kite back, and so for kiting, the Night Armor is very strong. But even better, the Duskweaver armor. The Duskweaver armor is fucking, honestly, I think it's OP. It's a 30% slow. So on top of you slowing them with the Icicle 50%, after they get out of that 50% slow, then you drop your Duskweaver and you slow them another 30%. That's huge. But on top of all that, it purges boots. So even if they try to catch up to your Zerg by running when sprinting with their boots, they're still not going to be able to catch up to you. Okay? So the Duskweaver armor is very, very, very powerful. I think it's one of the most powerful armors in the game right now. But again, I don't use the Dustweaver armor because I run heavy mace. And that's not really my job, right? I focus more on disengaging the enemy right when they're already there. I'm not focused on kiting. But if I'm something like a Grail Seeker or an Icicle, things that are focused for kiting, then Dustweaver makes a lot of sense. But in my opinion, I think the strongest armor in the game right now is Dustweaver armor. But again, it needs to make sense with your kit. All right. The next one is going to be Armor of Valor. Now, a lot of people don't like Armor of Valor. However, Armor of Valor is actually pretty strong, okay, if used appropriately. And that's, that's the big key, right? Is that Armor of Valor is really hard to use appropriately. The thing about Armor of Valor is that it's going to silence everybody that's doing damage around you. Here's the thing. Right now, we have a meta that deals with Demon Fang, okay? And Demon Fang slashes 3 times. Well, what if you stand in the fucking clump when those Demon Fangs are slashing, and then you silence the fuck out of them, and they can no longer slash their second or third one, right? Obviously, the enemy's going to try to silence or try to cleanse, okay? But let's say they don't. Then suddenly you completely fuck their entire engage, right? So that's very, very important. Now, if they do cleanse, then okay, you're going to silence them again the next time they hit, because it's a channel that keeps on going, right? So our Armor of Valor is actually pretty decent. I don't think it's necessary. It's absolutely not necessary, but it is decent and it is usable in certain options for certain people, such as like if you're a Great Arcane, if you're an offensive Locust, things like that, right? It'll work really well. Now moving on to the helmets and boots. So for the helmets, the Knight helmet is obviously a good option. Knight helmet is very strong no matter what. Okay, Knight helmet is just very strong. Even though they reduced them, we talked about that earlier. They reduced the changes recently. Okay, it doesn't have the CC resistance anymore, but the immunity to knockbacks is still very, very strong. Okay, it's very, very powerful. It's very important. All right, so Knight helmet is something that just needs to be in the Zerg somewhere, and you don't really need any specific helmet unless you're the Enigmatic. But for all the other supports, you don't need a specific helmet, so you might as well run a Knight helmet. Okay. The Judicator helmet, it's also very strong, and that one is mostly better for use if you're running like a one-handed Arcane or an Icicle or a Great Arcane. All right, Judicator helmet would be good with all of those. Not as much the Great Arcane, but it still would work. But the one-handed Arcane and Icicle definitely, because that's exactly your job. Your job is to kind of peel back the enemy, to stop them from engaging, to disrupt them, right? And that's what the Judicator helmet does. It disrupts. It's a huge area, so it's perfect, especially for Icicle. The next one is going to be the Assassin Hood. I already told you guys before many times, I don't like Assassin Hood. However, it makes sense for a lot of these weapons, right? Great Arcane, Locust, Enigmatic, all these can run Assassin Hood, and it would make sense. Enigmatic doesn't need it, but because you want to run something else with the Enigmatic. You usually want to run like a Face Scale, or you want to run like a Night Helm, or you want to run something that will allow you to actually get that fucking cast off, right? But if you want to run Assassin Hood, I'm not gonna be upset about that, because it makes sense. Again, that's all it is. It's the synergy within the rest of your kit. For the boots, we already mentioned Graveyard Boots earlier. Graveyard Boots makes you immune to stuns, roots, and slows, and just the fact that it makes you immune to stuns, roots, and slows, that right there on its own makes it a very good option for a lot of these, right? So think about it. Icicle has already mobility on the W, so you aren't really worried about the speed boost, but you don't really want to get stun rooted or slowed yourself and then killed in the back while you're trying to kite, right? So having the Graveyard Boots with the Icicle makes a lot of sense. Life Curse, same thing. I mean, you're going to usually be in the front. You don't want to get caught in the clumps. One-handed Arcane doesn't need it as much because one-handed Arcane usually will stay at a distance, but if you do put yourself in a bad situation, Graveyard Boots would help because you also have the mobility on the W, the Cleanse W. Usually you want to run Cleanse W. All right, so let me see. What are the other ones? Graveguard Boots for Enigmatic. I already mentioned that earlier, right? You want to be uninterruptible as much as possible with the Enigmatic, because if it gets interrupted, very likely your Zerg's going to die, so that's very important. Boots of Valor is another one. Boots of Valor is important, especially for Icicle. Okay, for the other ones, not so much. I wouldn't really recommend it for any other ones. But Icicle, I wouldn't mind it, because again, with Icicle, you're gonna put yourself there where you're kiting back the enemy and you're trying to keep them back away from your Zerg, right? So that means that the enemy's gonna get annoyed, very annoyed with you, and they're gonna want to kill you. All right. So if they're gonna want to kill you, they're usually gonna try to stun you, root you, slow you, whatever, right? So then if you have Boots of Valor, it's gonna allow you to get away safely, and that Boots of Valor is very, very powerful in those situations. So for Icicle, I highly recommend Boots of Valor. I know some people have used Guardian Boots for some of these weapons. I don't recommend it. I just don't think. Listen, I love Guardian Boots, and if you know me, I literally have played Guardian Boots for like 4 years straight now. Okay, I love Guardian Boots, but I don't recommend it for a lot of supports. But I do see it. This is why I'm mentioning it, because I do see it. I've seen people play Locust and they use their Guardian Boots so that they don't die while they're Locusting. Or I've seen people with like Icicle as well, because they have the Blink W, so they already have mobility, so they're just more worried about survivability. But if you're worried about survivability, I prefer you use Guardian or Graveguard Boots or Boots of Valor with Icicle, right? So I don't know. I'm only mentioning it because some people like it for this. I don't think it makes sense. In general, the refreshing sprint, right? So if you're running a refreshing sprint, so that's like any of the leather helmets, or sorry, leather boots, you run refreshing sprint. That's going to be fine. And the reason for it is because you have high cooldowns with a lot of these weapons. So if you want to run a refreshing sprint to reduce the cooldowns a couple more seconds, that's going to be perfectly fine. All right. I don't mind that at all. That's very useful. For many years, the meta for Locust involved using refreshing sprint, right? For multiple years. So it's definitely still viable. Another one is Mercenary Shoes. Now, the Mercenary Shoes allows you to get away from any stun, root, slow, including Great Arcane stun. Okay. Everything, completely everything. So it allows you to just break free from everything. Mercenary Shoes can be very strong for these roles because you're a high value target. All supports are usually high value targets, which means the enemy really, really wants to kill you because they cannot kill your Zerg until you fucking die first. So therefore, using something that allows you survivability like this in critical moments is going to be very, very important. Because you cannot just drop and die. Yo, Latorian, what's up? I'm late. Gonna watch it later on YouTube. Yeah, it's fine, man. It's all good. It's all good. I'll post it on YouTube after we're done. There was a lot of shit today, man. There's a lot of shit. We went over the fucking patch notes and stuff. So if you're just getting here right now, we did go over the patch notes earlier at the very beginning of the stream. So if you missed that, make sure you guys roll back the clip because yeah, that is some important information there for sure. I was expecting this episode but couldn't make it in time. It's all good, man. It's all good. It happens. All right. So now we're gonna get into the playstyle tips, right? So I'm gonna give you guys a few tips on what to do, how to play better as a support, and then after that we're gonna look into some some analysis, a little bit of VOD review, but not too much. More just kind of looking at these weapons and seeing how people are playing them on the field. That video we're actually watching right now is a Great Arcane Guy. That video we're actually right now is actually one of the videos we're gonna look at in a little bit, right? For Great Arcane. This actually was posted this morning, and so I put it up because it was just a good video for it. So playstyle tips. So when you're a support, you have to anticipate the enemy engages. You have to anticipate the enemy movements. Okay, why? Because you cannot be fully respondent to the enemy. Okay. What I mean by this is like, think about it. If you're an enigmatic, right? If you're an enigmatic and the enemy engages and you didn't see it coming, by the time you hit your E on somebody, it's going to be too late. Your Zerg is already dead. All right. If you're a Locust and again, you don't read the enemy and the enemy engages, your Locust E is going to be too late. You can't cleanse your Zerg is going to die. Right. If you're a Great Arcane and you don't read the enemy coming in and you drop your Great Arcane E too late, they probably already hit their E and are walking back, and now you just stop them from walking back, which doesn't matter too much because your Zerg is now dead, right? So my point is that very similar to tanks, specifically disengaged tanks, it is extremely important for supports to learn how to read the enemy movement and to understand what the enemy is doing at all times. That way you can counter it, okay? Because you are a direct counter. Supports are direct counters to the enemy, all right? Now, I mentioned this earlier. supports are high value targets. All right, we have an episode of high value targets, I think next week. So we'll look at that even more. But essentially, supports are high value targets. That means that you cannot get caught, okay? Because if you get caught in an enemy engage, like let's say the enemy's engaging and they do an air compress and you get caught in that air compress, then I don't care what support weapon you're using. You're not gonna be able to help your Zerg. You're an enigmatic, suddenly you get clumped, you're gonna die. All right, you're a great arcane. Well, congratulations, you got clumped with the rest of your Zerg. How can you help your Zerg? You're a locust. How the hell are you gonna channel your fucking E while the enemy's hitting you? Now you can do it, and the best of players, the best supports are able to do it even in those moments. But the better thing to do is simply not get caught in those, man. You got to read the enemy so that you don't get caught in the engages, because if you get caught in the engages, then you're not helping your Zerg. And not only that, if you die, remember, you're a high value target. If you die, your Zerg is much more likely to die after, okay? So it's very, very important that you stay alive, but also stay vigilant of the enemy. Now, I have to warn you guys, okay? Supports a lot of times think they are tanks, okay? They say, well, I'm wearing plate armor, all right? So I'm going to stay in the front. I'm going to be right in the face of the enemy because I'm a plate armor. I'm a tank. You're not a tank, okay? You're a support, and you need to understand that, because a lot of times support players get caught and die simply because they didn't see it coming, right? They didn't see it coming because they're trying to play as tanks, okay? But they don't have the mentality of a tank. Not only that, they don't have the HP or the resistances of a tank. And you can think, oh, well, they do have the resistances. They're wearing plate. No, they don't. Because a tank will have other things that will give them things, such as like, okay, if I'm a heavy mace, I play heavy mace all the time, right? So if I'm a heavy mace, I get caught somewhere, I can snare charge out of there, okay? What the hell are you gonna do as a locust? You can't jump out of there, right? So what I'm saying is, foundationally, right? Focus on your job. Your job is support. Don't become a casualty because you decided that you wanted to be a tank. All right? Yo, Amazon Moon. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. So, I don't want to get too distracted, but I do appreciate the Prime subscription, man. So, you're not a tank. All right? Stick to your job, because it's very, very important that you don't die and that you don't go and try to be at the front all the time like if you're a tank. You're not a tank. The closest support that gets to a tank is something like a one-handed arcane or icicle. Okay? But even those, they have mobility and things like that, and they have range and all that. Even those, I say, like, just be very careful, man. Be very careful. Don't play like you're a tank, because you're not. Another thing is cycle your cooldowns, right? And this is actually a tip that I've given multiple times, because in general, cycling your cooldowns is extremely important, okay? You don't ever want to waste everything you have on one engage, because if the enemy happens to have a secondary engage, you're screwed, okay? If you're a locust, you use your E, that's fine. Don't use your W right after. Give it a second. Make sure that you're not going to need your W later, okay? Because if you give it a second and the enemy comes in and engages again, then guess what? You might need your cleanse on that something else, right? On that new clump, on that new engage, all right? So cycle your cooldowns. Don't waste everything in one hit. Now, for specific ones, like a one-handed arcane, okay? And great arcane. Specifically this tip for those, find the bombers, but not just them, everybody else could benefit from it, okay? And I'll explain why. If you find the bombers, if the enemy has solo bombers or bomb squads or things like that, try to find them and try to keep an eye on them. And the reason I say it is because obviously if you're a one-handed arcane, that's who you need to stop, right? With the E. If you're a great arcane, same thing, you need to stop them with an E. That's fine. But if you're an enigmatic and you see a bomb squad on the far east and your Zerg is looking north and you see a bomb squad far east, then you know that bomb squad's going to come in and engage, right? So instead of wasting your locust on the front or your enigmatic on the front, give it a second. Wait until you see that bomb squad coming in. And when they do come in, counter them instead of countering the front, right? Have eyes everywhere. Don't just focus on the front and that's it, right? Don't be blind. You have to look at the whole Zerg, look at the enemy, and know that the enemy is going to try to bomb you at off cooldown timers. And this is why you have to cycle your cooldowns, and why you have to be looking at all the different angles, and why you got to find the bombers, right? So it all ties in together is my point. All right. Now, here's the thing. If you're a support player, there is always something to do. Okay. There is always something to do. All right. If you feel like you're just standing around and you're doing nothing, then you're doing something wrong. Okay. And if the enemy hasn't engaged and you're kind of just sitting in a Terry waiting for them to push you, there's still something you can do. And what you can do is you can look over the wall, look at what the enemy's doing, look at their position, find their bombers, right? Find their DPS, okay? Find the location of their Zerg, find their tanks, their main engaged tanks, find their callers, and just mark them in your head. And just think, you know what? That's where they have these bomb squad. I'm going to position myself this way to make sure I can counter that bomb squad. Okay. So even if it seems like nothing's going on and there's nothing for you to do, there's always something to do, especially as a support. Okay. Now, when it comes down to it, sometimes you're going to have to choose between who you're going to try to save and who's going to end up dying. Okay. And if you have the ability to choose, I mean, very often you don't, but if you do, like a Locust, where you put your Locust E or where you put your Enigmatic, right? Try to prioritize your tanks. And the reason for it is because as long as the tanks are alive, you will probably stay alive, okay? Because if the tanks die, the next people up there is gonna be the supports, because supports wear plate, right? Remember I said, you're not a tank, so you're not gonna be at the very front, but you're gonna be right behind them, okay? So if you let your tanks die, guess what? You're next. Okay, so try to prioritize saving your tanks as much as possible. All right. Also, healers tend to wear cloth. So healers tend to stand farther back, which means that healers have less visibility on tanks than you do because you have plate. So you're going to be closer up to them. So again, make sure you prioritize the tanks. Very, very, very important. All right. Any questions right now, drop them in the chat. I'm going to get set up so we can watch some of these videos real quick. And then, you know, we're going to start with the Great Arcane because this one just happened today. And I know some of you guys already saw it. And that way we can just go through it real quick.
오케이. 기다려, 아직이야. 아무것도 하지 마.
All right, so this is in the East server. All right, this is in the East server. This is a castle fight. This happened today. All right.
Ready, ready. 오.
So look at what he's wearing. Remember, we were going through the gear, right? He's wearing demon armor. Remember, I told you it makes sense with Great Arcane, right? He's using the silence Q. He's using cleanse on the W. He's using the Great Arcane E, and he's got the demon armor. He also has a assassin hood, which I don't mind. I don't mind with the Great Arcane. It's fine. It makes sense. I'm not quite sure what boots that is. I think that's the boots that levitate you and give you like mana and HP regen. I don't remember what they're called. But yeah, that's not necessary. You definitely don't need that.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 가봐. 빼.
So first, I want to know his positioning, right? So his Zerg is down here to the southwest, all right? And they're engaging right now. Mario Jin is the caller right now. And you heard him right now. He said something like "u sa sa sam e." I think that's what he said. Anyway, that's the call. That's like basically saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I believe that's Chinese, but I'm not 100% sure. So don't get mad at me if I'm wrong. If it's not Chinese, it's Korean. I can't remember. Anyway, so he just called an engage, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He just called an engage, and look at his positioning. He came over here in the northwest side, and he wants to use his range, right? Remember, I told you the range is very important. So he's gonna use his Great Arcane in case they want to come through and engage on counter engage on his Zerg.
기다려.
So here they're coming in, and he pulled west. He shouldn't have done that. He should have stayed up here. He was perfectly fine up here. He pulled west. But now they're coming in, and he used his Great Arcane here. I think it's misplaced. He should have put it back here. But either way, it's fine, because what he's gonna do is he's gonna delay all these people from doing anything.
다시 와봐. 와봐. 어디 갔어? 우측이? 어디 있어? 어디 있지?
And I'm gonna skip through a little bit.
5, 4. 기다려.
All right, so right now, his Zerg just engaged, and now they're getting counter engaged, right? Same position, right? Let's see what it does this time. Oh, actually, he just used it. Hold on. He used it early, I think. Hold on.
이 파티 준비. 이 파티 준비. 기다려. 아직이야. 지금.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, he did it on time. So he came in. They're coming in. They're trying to engage. And look at that. Right? The enemy's entire engage is getting fucked here. Now, I know this is small scale. I get it. But this is even better in large scale because even more people will get caught in this. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 people in this. Okay, because this other guy got out of it. Right? So 4 people. He only got 4 people. If this is a full ZvZ, like 100v100 or some shit, he's gonna get 10 people in this 100% sure.
지금 5 4
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
1 박아.
막혔어.
아 그가 막혔어? 아 이거 안 되겠다. 그가 때문에
70.
한번 더 할게.
Now, there's a specific part I want to show you guys when they're kind of farther back. I just don't want to spend too much time on each individual video because we went through a lot of shit today. Somewhere around here.
기다려. 아직이야. 요번 빼. 기다려. 이 파티 기다려. 아직이야. 이 파티 기다려. 아직이야. 루팅이.
Here it is. Here
하나
it is.
루팅.
All right, so watch this, right? So he's over here to the west. His Zerg is split in 2 here. The enemy is going to try to push down to the northwest side. And watch what he does. Look at his positioning.
루팅이.
He's staying by the wall in the southwest. He's looking at this choke here. Now the enemy's coming in, right? Remember, I've told you guys, reading the enemy is very important. How do you read the enemy here? Look, this guy's looking northwest. This guy's looking northwest. This guy's looking northeast, kind of, but he's going to have to go around, right? This guy's looking northwest, and this guy, I don't know what he's doing, right? But for the most part, there's a lot of guys looking northwest. That will only happen when they're all going to try to come in, okay? It doesn't tend to happen by coincidence.
빼 이제 빼.
And now they're sprinting and he sees the air compress. It's confirmed. They're coming in, right? So he's walking up here and he uses his E right over here.
빼.
Look at that. The entire backline. So now here comes the engage, right? And he gets caught in it.
사우스 걸.
He pops his boots for whatever, but it doesn't matter. That's it. That's the end of the engage. All because he stopped the rest of it.
다 걸어와. 루시 웨스트 통과해서 노려 이 파티는.
Right, so that's my point, right? This is very, very powerful. This is very, very powerful. A lot of people are not using it because they think that, oh, well, it's just shit now. It's not shit. I promise you it's not shit. I think he's gonna use it right away here.
1파티만 기다려. 1파티만 계속 와. 5 4 1파티만 와가. 빼. 1파티 빼. 놀세트 통해서 기다리라니까 1파티. 아 씨발. 다 빼.
Look, they're trying to crash through, right? They're trying to crash through into both sides, into northeast and into northwest.
아 미치.
I don't even know where he used it here. Wait, what the fuck? Hold on.
다 빼.
Oh, yeah, he's gonna put it right here. I just can't see it because of the coloring. Yeah, it's right there. It's right on the choke, right? So he stops these guys on the choke. Look, see, they're not moving, right? And so now the enemy that thought that they were just gonna push through the choke and just run into his Zerg and just run them over, now they have to wait 2 seconds on these guys, or what is it, 2.5 seconds, something like that? Now they gotta wait 2.5 or 2 seconds in order to actually be able to push.
아 미치겠네 진짜.
Look, these guys are completely alone, right? These 3 guys that push through, and these 3 guys, I guess, all right? They're completely alone. The rest of his Zerg is all the way back there.
다 올라가. 다 놀수로 올라가. 퍼져 이제 퍼져. 사우스에서 들어올 거야. 퍼져 제발.
See, right here, his Zerg got clumped. He's not using his W. He should have been better positioned for this. He could have used his W here.
미치겠네. 아.
Now he uses it. I mean, he was kind of late, to be honest.
아. 퍼져. 웨스트로 걸어와. 다 웨스트로 걸어와. 바로 갈 거야. 5 이스트로 5 4 3.
So the enemy is kind of getting clumped over here on the east side and they're on the west side. So this is one of the problems. This Great Arcane is not going to be very, very powerful in this scenario when you're full brawling, unless the enemy happens to clump themselves up. Let's see how they do.
1
So here they're clumping on the south, right? And you know your engage is east. I would use my E right here as a Great Arcane. I would use it right here. Why? Because I'm catching this healer, right? Or maybe even use it over here. Get this healer and this healer, right? Try to catch these high value targets. This is why I tell you, pay attention to high value targets, right? Because if you catch these healers, then this clump is very likely to die.
이스트 제발.
So he's playing only disengage, so that's probably why he didn't use it. But sometimes you gotta adjust, man. Sometimes you gotta go back and forth on what you're doing. All right. Anyway, that's it for that video. I don't want to go too deep into any specific video. I got an icicle video next. So this is from Momentary. the guild that lasted a moment. And then they evolved into Pora again. Let me see here.
To the southeast side.
This from the AOTV section, I guess. I think it's just gonna show. Yeah, it's just gonna show what they see here.
Breaking away from the water bridge.
So there's Africa calling in this here. I know it's really pixely. I'm sorry, but just I'm pointing things out for you. Just trust me, that's Africa. All right.
Wrath, on the other hand, also knows he can't go anywhere near that water bridge. As he carries on, he's going to break away and go northwest.
Look at that route. You saw that route? I'm going to bring it back.
And go northwest.
All of these guys, literally all of the guys around here got rooted by a single icicle W.
Africa on the
and now the icicle, he's right here. He's on the northwest. Look at that wind wall just pushing everyone back, right? This is why I told you guys, Knight Armor is strong, man, but people don't want to listen. Knight Armor is strong.
Hail defensive wind walls from King. Going to pay the iron price for that, but it's going to slow down the...
And now the icicle E drops over here on the northwest.
Push here from...
So now this is his version, his video, right? His perspective. It's still really bad quality, by the way. This is not me. This is just the way it is. Look at that, slow right there on that choke, right? Beautiful.
Never seen a thread on the internet.
Now he walks back into them. You watch that, right? He walked back into them. I'm gonna show you guys again because it's so important, right? He, instead of just getting away, he's walking back into them. He jumped, he blinked out with his boots. He has a blink boot. And then he walks right back into them.
On the internet just to prove a point.
He uses his Judicator helmet inside of them. He goes back inside of them. And then blinks out with the W, again, rooting them again. Right? On his own, he's making sure this entire fucking Zerg can't do shit.
Leaving it to the informants, don't
now the wind wall.
inform me about who informing.
Forcing all those night helps to pop, right? And knocking back some people.
That's your final warning. 76 to sting like a bumblebee. He start transforming.
And now they're trying to deal with him. Why? Because he's so incredibly, unbearably annoying. Right? This is the power of Icicle. You understand? This is the power of Icicle. It's so important. It's so powerful. All right? But a lot of people just don't see the value in it anymore because they're so focused on other things. It's so strong.
Your homies on the drip, but they ain't never moved.
Look at that wind wall. And I've told you guys about wind wall before, right? Or even firewall. Use it off of a wall. See this wall right here on the south, this boulder? His wind wall is matching that boulder, so they can't go south and around. They're gonna have to go north and around. This is beautiful.
Rap, but never mentioned till we crack.
See, these guys are trying to go south and around it, but they can't.
You were the news that I bet his family viewed that.
Now he puts an icicle down here. This an offensive icicle. I wouldn't have used it here, to be honest. I would have probably blinked forward and then used the icicle deeper into the enemy to get more value out of it, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. The icicle, again, look at this wall over here on the west, right? There's a wall right here on the west, and his icicle is matching it, okay? This is very, 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 very good play. All right, this guy, King Balth, I think his name is King Balth. Very, very, very strong play from him right here. Icicle play, amazing right now.
He never pulled the trigger.
He walks into them, and then Judy Helms, watch.
And Goon steady putting Jimmy Glow up in.
It's just beautiful. I mean, he's literally stopping the entire Zerg on his own.
Swisher. Never been the one to say today I'm the one.
Now that wind wall didn't have a backing on the right or left side, right? On the east or west side. But I mean, it's not bad. He wasn't gonna use it anytime soon. His Zerg is like all over them at this point. Like he wasn't gonna need it. I would have saved it, to be honest. I would have saved it there. But I mean, it's not bad that he used it there.
Clutching on the Drake, make sure he don't get away.
Look here, look at the wind wall, right? Against the wall again. The wind wall against the wall. Right, and then pushing all these guys back. His Zerg looks to be to the west. Now they did manage to get through here. He should have positioned a little bit southeast here, but I mean it's fine anyway. Now they all jumped over here, right? So he blinks with his boots into this area, and watch what he's gonna do. That's another blink, but that's the frost blink, right? So he roots everybody in that section. So I want you guys to pay attention to this. This is very, very, very high level play, okay? And by the way, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I have no idea who this guy is. I literally have no idea who he is. And I know that I'm basically saying this guy's playing fucking godly, right? And so when people kind of do that, people tend to think like, oh, well, he must be your friend or something. I have zero clue who this guy is, okay? I have no idea who this guy is, okay? But he's just playing fucking amazing with an icicle. This is beautiful icicle play. I'm going to show you guys again in that play what he did. So here, the Zerg, the enemy Zerg is coming southwest, right? And he cuts off the southwest angle. Watch that. He cuts off this southwest angle, and it forces the enemy to say, fuck it, I'm going northwest, right? So now they're going to go northwest, and instead of just going northwest and spreading this entire area, they see this little fucking, what is it, furniture item. I don't even know what it's called. Cauldron, I think it's called, right? They see this little furniture item, and because of that, they decide, I'm not going to walk through here. I'm going to walk all the way up in the northwest, right? Because they want to get away from the wind wall and the cauldron. This is why I tell you guys, little things like little trees and shit like that matter so much. Because he just wind walled this section, and he didn't even wind wall the whole thing, right? They went around the south, but he wind walled the section anyway. And so the entire enemy Zerg was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to go south. I'm going to go west. I'm going to go northwest and around. And so watch what they do right now. Watch what they're going to do. All these people just got knocked back and immediately turned northwest. Look at that. They immediately turned northwest. So now that they turn northwest, the rest of the Zerg that was already going northwest, they group up and they end up clumping like this. Okay? All because of one fucking wind wall. And on top of that, and a fucking cauldron, right? And on top of that, he goes and uses his fucking W to root them all as well. Beautiful fucking play. This is what I call synergy, right? When I'm telling you guys about using synergy within your skills and your positioning and your weapon and your gear, right? This is what I'm talking about. He's using one skill to make the other skill better, right? He may not even be thinking about this. He might not be like, oh yeah, I'm going to wind wall them here so I can do that, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he might not be thinking about it like that, right? But this is exactly what he's accomplishing. And I promise you, he probably accomplishes this very often because he's wanting to do this as much as possible. He understands the concept of closing gaps and funneling the enemy, right? You can see it because of how quick his reactions are. He slows the group. Remember, they already clumped northwest, right? They're still clumped. They haven't spread. Look, only 2 people plus this guy over here. This guy was already up here. So only 3 people out of that entire clump declumped and they spread to the west. The rest of them are still walking forward like sheep all together. So it makes his job so easy. He just drops an icicle right there.
That's all Raven, catch that nigga walking out. We in the bushes, we been waiting. Never seen a threat on the end.
All right, so that I'm not gonna go through more of this video, but essentially that's my point, right? Icicle, very, very, very powerful. And more people need to use it, man. It's very, very powerful for kiting. This next one is a one-handed arcane. This is gonna be Surf. Let me skip through.
If you give a damn about me, 'cause you got my
You know what? I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Let me refresh this shit. It might be me, to be honest. No, it looks fine. I don't know. Sometimes YouTube kind of does this where it fucks up. Now it's good, I guess.
when you gonna let me know if you give a damn about me, 'cause you got my hands tied.
All right, we didn't see this engagement, so I can't really say anything about this. We'll look at the next one.
My defense, I always fall for con.
And I don't want to get copyright with that song, so we're just gonna roll it without music. All right, let's look at this one here. All right, so here's the enemy coming in, right, from the far east, and he uses his E and immediately pops his wind wall, right? Why is he doing this combo with the one-handed arcane? Okay. Again, he's using night armor, right? Sorry, I forgot to mention that. He's using night armor. Okay. So why is he using his E and immediately using his night armor? Well, because his E is gonna purge them. And look at all these guys, they have Knight Helmet on. So his E is gonna purge all of them, and then he's gonna Knight Helm them back. So then they're or Knight Armor them back, and so they're not gonna be able to go through that wind wall. They're gonna have to get knocked back. So all these guys are Knight Helmet, but because of his combo between the E and the Knight Armor, he's able to wind wall all of them back. Well, actually, he was like a second late, so most of them got through. But anyway, this guy right here and this guy over here, they got knocked back because of that, right? He was just slightly too late there. Look at that group of people. Even though they're rooted and everything, a lot of them won't be able to go through because of that Knight Armor. So now he goes, he pulls back, right? And he uses his silence on them. He's staying active. He's staying in the front. I like this. What I would do at this point is I would walk in here and use my Judicator helmet, okay, to disrupt them even more. There, another guy did it. Some other guy just did that. Exactly what I said. Now he's walking in. He's about to use it. There it is, right? Now the enemy has no choice. They can't get through here. They know they can't get through here at this point. They have no choice. So they're going to have to pull back. Now he was using the Mimic W. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of the Mimic W. It's not consistent. And I'm not a fan of anything not consistent. So, I mean, if you like it, go ahead and run it. But I don't like it. So here he goes. They try to push up, it looks like, and then he silences them. He didn't have to do that, to be honest. I think he should have waited. See, right here, now the enemy's coming in and he doesn't have his cooldown, right? This is a big mistake. This is a really, really bad play by Mike 9 here. Terrible play. Because he just used his cooldown on nothing. And now that they're full sending it, like this is an absolutely like full send, right? He should be using it. On top of it, he should be standing more southeast here so he can use his Judicator helmet on them, right? You don't really want to use the Knight Armor here because they're probably going to kill you if you stand over here on the northeast. But maybe if you stand at an angle here, you can kind of knock back at least half of these guys. Instead, he did nothing. He was just useless, right? I guess we're back to the previous fight. And listen, by the way, if you're thinking like, oh, this is not a very good video for this, like right there, he just wasted his fucking E again. If you're thinking this is not a very good video for this, it's because a lot of people don't play this. Okay, so it's really hard to find videos on these specific weapons. They're very strong, they're very powerful, but it's very hard to find good players that use it. Okay, the one-handed arcane was best used by a guy named Pizza Dad. He was in Blue Army some years back. He doesn't play anymore, but he was basically like absolutely fucking godly with his one-handed arcane style. Look at that. Look at all these wind walls, right? It's just crazy. He's going to wind wall northwest, and then there's another guy that's going to wind wall northeast. Look at that. Another wind wall. That's atrocious, bro. Like, that's just good play, man. That's just really good play. Okay? Like, cycling cooldowns, understanding what you're doing, positioning well, right? Pushing the enemy back. Like, look, he's jumping in here and wind walling off this wall, right? Right off this wall. Now, I think he's a little overextended here. I would like him a little bit to the west here, but it's totally fine. This is a really, really good wind wall here. And remember, the wind wall gives you resistances, if I remember correctly. So that's what his stacks are, is resistances. So it's not like he's in full danger of dying here. All right, so anyway, that's the one-handed arcane. Let me pull up another video. I got an occult video here. Let me see. All right.
Back up. Hit the choke now and then back up.
Oh no! Wait. Oh yeah, this is
back up.
okay.
Back up. Let's kite. Let's kite south. Kite south. Kite south. Kite south. Kite south. Kite south now. Kite south now. Yo, I need help on the east side of the blob. East side of the blob. Come south. Come south. Come south. Come south. Come south. Nice. Good through this next choke. South. Come southeast through that choke. Southeast through that choke. Tanks disengage here. Southeast through the choke and disengage.
That's the video, by the way. The video's lagging. Not you.
Southeast through the choke and disengage, boys. Come southeast. South.
Oh man, hold on. This is
Get
terrible.
request in
There
5.
we go. We're having some difficulties with the videos here.
Get out if you can.
This is Lemny. Oh, I remember this video. I want to show you something here with the occult staff. They used the occult staff in this Zerg as a I'm gonna just lower this, see if that helps. They use the occult staff here in the Zerg as a main Zerg.
Hold.
And so like right here, they just cross the choke, right?
Let's stop up.
They get bombed, whatever. He still has cooldowns.
We have to hold this. We have to hold this shit. I'm on this very southeast side, that southeast blob. Get ready to hit the choke in 3, 2, 1. Hit the choke now to the northwest. Hit the choke now northwest.
So now he's stunned, right? He can use that cleanse.
Hit the choke now northwest. Hit the choke now northwest, boys.
Pops the cleanse.
Hit that shit northwest. Hit that shit northwest.
And he uses his fucking his occult forward, right? And it's like his Zerg is engaging, and that's fine. But look, it's not gonna change the outcome, man. Not only was he late, but also it's not gonna change the outcome. Like your Zerg is not a bomb squad, right? Your entire Zerg is not a bomb squad. Also, he's getting flanked to all hell here.
West. Nice. We're gonna get wiped. Come east.
See, it would have been better if he put that carpet to get out of this, right? Either way, I don't think it would have worked. Either way, I think he would have been screwed. But it would have been better to play it that way. I wanted to show you guys this real quick just because I mentioned a cult. But like I said, this is a bomb squad weapon. All right. Let's see if we can load up a Locust video here.
Northwest 3, 2.
All right, so let's take care of this ellipsis calling.
2, 1 from 1 straight northwest. From 1.
Hold on. All right, there we go.
Straight northwest on the hill. From 1 straight northwest on the hill. From 1 straight northwest on the hill. Nice. Come back east.
So he walks up to the choke, and he has I think that's Adjudicator armor. He walks up to the choke and drops his Adjudicator armor right on top of the choke. That's beautiful. He drops it and walks away, right? Unlike the demon armor, he would have to stand there and channel it. With the Adjudicator armor, he just walks up there, he drops it, and moves on with his life.
Come back east. Come east across the bridge now.
He gets rooted over here, instant cleanse, right? This guy has very quick reactions.
Now we pull across the bridge. Yo, look south. Defense falling down. Come east across the bridge now. They're gonna flank us. Come southeast across the bridge. 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 Come southeast across the bridge.
Absolution's still southwest. They're not flanking east of you yet.
Okay, listen. Front 1 look north. Walk up. Front 1 look straight north. 3, 2, 1. Front 1 look straight west. Actually. They're so far. Northeast. They're so far. Come back.
Abso southwest.
We kill these tanks. Come back. Front 2. Everybody count.
So here, there's a clump here happening, and now I think that this is the enemy. That this take care of guys engaging, but they're clumping on their own, and I think that there was an air compress that just happened as well.
1, 3, 2.
So he pops his Locust right on top of it, because he doesn't actually know if these guys are about to get clumped and dumped or not. So this is very preemptive, and that's good. Remember, I told you guys about reading the enemy, right? He's reading the enemy here, and he's reading the situation, and he's looking, okay, these guys need a cleanse. They need something to get out of this, because otherwise they might die, right? And if you're wrong, if he's wrong, and he thinks, oh, the enemy's about to engage, and he's wrong, then you know what? At worst, you just lost the cooldown, right? But if he's right, and the enemy does engage, then suddenly he just saved everybody because his Locust was on time.
2, 1. Front 2 counter rope now. Feel the hit. Okay, support us, come south. Support us, come south. We have a really good angle here. We're good. Now listen. Front 1, look west on Absol. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Front 1 straight west. Front 1 straight west on Absol. Oh my god, this is huge. Front 1. Come back east.
Oh no, we lost the video again. It's all right. Anyway, I showed you guys a little bit of it. I'm gonna see if I can show you guys an enigmatic video, just like at least a little bit of a clip on it, and then after that we're gonna close it up because we are basically about to run out of time. But also we made it through. We showed everything in a perfect amount of time, so I'm glad. All right, hold on. This is Surfing Monkeys. Oh, sorry, Smurfing Monkeys. It's hard to say, man.
Through the mob camp. Listen, cleanse the back. Help the boys out.
There's a meta abuser calling. If you guys don't know, he's bounced around a lot of different guilds. I think right now he's in escalation, but I'm not 100% sure.
Help the boys at the back.
Look, all right, so that's an enigmatic, right? So the enemy's trying to push on this choke here and try to kill the guys on here. I don't know if it's a choke. It might be a wall. I don't know, but they're trying to bomb, right? And he's putting his E on it. Now, he did pop his Graveguard boots. Now, I don't know if this Judicator helmet is his allies or his enemies, but if it was his enemies, it would have canceled this channel. So you see how important these Graveguard boots are?
There is a front rotating to right here, okay? On your surface,
Oh, you fucking joke.
And see how much damage he's taking? This is the problem with running cloth on the enigmatic, right? It is what it is. I mean, you kind of need to, but yeah, this is the problem.
Yeah, but there's still
He did drop a shield on himself, and that helped him.
there's still more.
Okay, listen, keep on walking western. Keep on walking western. Keep on walking western. Listen, sustain.
Yo, who's the leader of I'm north of the Terry?
Yo, did I lose a lot of people there?
Northeast now, walk into the pass and takes. Northeast in 3, 2, 1. On this club, northeast. On this club, northeast. On this club, northeast. On the jog. Okay, look west on the edge. Let them engage. Observe it.
So look at that. He used his purity robe, and he's immune to the soul scythe here, right?
Good.
This is why purity robe is actually pretty strong. It's just the problem is that it's cloth.
Good. In 3, west. In 2, 1.
Now he's channeling on this guy in front of him. I think this is a healer that's channeling a blight. I don't know why he's doing this. I would have channeled it more to the west, to be honest. This is kind of like on the flank. This is not gonna do anything.
Deep west now, on the mammoth. It's you.
Yeah, see, nothing happened. I mean, he got interrupted, but whatever. I mean, like, this was just useless. If you're gonna play an enigmatic, try to make sure you're at the center of clumps, right? Don't try to be dropping it on the flanks too often. Don't forget about your flanks. Your flanks are important, but if nothing's happening on the flank, don't waste it.
TC, come here. I need defenses here. Stop their melees. The melees are walking in. It's on the south side.
So here's the clump, right? He walks out of the clump, and this is why mercenary shoes would have been good, right? When he got caught in there, he can just blink out, right? Here he got lucky, he got cleansed out. But yeah, he turns around, and he goes and channels his E.
He's on the south side. Okay, listen, 10 seconds. Walk into them now. Don't be a pussy. Walk into them.
All right, so that's it. All right, I'm gonna let the rest of the video run without comms, and then yeah, because we're gonna close it up now. If you guys have any questions at all, drop them in the chat right now. I'll give you guys about a minute. Otherwise, we're gonna close it up. Like I said, starting after this, because this is the last episode of this series, right? So after this, the episodes are gonna start getting more complex. Okay, and by complex, I don't mean like they're gonna be like super hard. I just mean that they're gonna be higher level concepts. Okay, they're gonna be things that you guys are just gonna have to kind of digest and understand. And if you don't have a good grasp of all the things we've kind of gone through already, then you're gonna have a lot of questions. Okay, and that's okay. It's fine to have questions. Just make sure you guys are asking those questions. And if you're not asking me, ask your guild members, ask your guild leader, ask your caller. Learn from each other. That's the whole point of all of this that we're doing with the stream, is to make sure that we're able to kind of bring up the conversation of ZvZ as much as possible, and that way we can all learn from each other. All right, so but yeah, that is it. Let me see. All right, no questions. So I'm gonna close it up. The next episode is going to be on Friday. Give me a second. Let me make sure here. The 12th. Yeah, so Friday the 12th, it's gonna be episode 21. It's gonna be Under Pressure. Okay. The 13th is gonna be no stream. All right. I have something going on, family events.